Karen insults black soldier. His response brings the entire airport to silence. The airport terminal buzzed with the chaotic hum of travelers' wheels of suitcases clattering, announcements crackling over the intercom, and the low murmur of 100 conversations. Amid the crowd, Marcus Tate stood tall in his pressed army uniform, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder. His dark skin glistened faintly under the fluorescent lights, and his eyes, sharp yet weary, scanned the gate numbers. After 2 years deployed overseas, Marcus was finally heading home to Atlanta. He carried the weight of his service, both the pride and the scars, quietly, as he always had. At the check-in counter, a woman's voice sliced through the noise like a knife. "Excuse me, I was here first." Marcus turned to see a middle-aged woman, her blonde hair pulled tightly into a bun, glaring at him. Her name tag read Karen, and her tone dripped with indignation. "You need to wait your turn like everyone else," she snapped, stepping closer, her purse swinging wildly. Marcus raised a hand, calm but firm. "Ma'am, I was called up by the agent. I'm not cutting in." His voice was steady, honed by years of discipline, but Karen's eyes narrowed, undeterred. "Don't you dare talk back to me," she hissed, her voice rising. Heads turned. "I know your type, thinking you can just barge in and take what's not yours." The word type landed like a slap, heavy with implication. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he held his ground, his silence a shield against her venom. The ticket agent, a young woman with tired eyes, tried to intervene. "Ma'am, please, he's next in line." "No!" Karen cut her off, her finger now pointed at Marcus. "I'm not standing here while some thug in a uniform gets special treatment." The word thug echoed, drawing gasps from the crowd. A man in a business suit shifted uncomfortably. A mother pulled her child closer. Marcus's chest rose and fell, his restraint fraying as the insult burrowed deep. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low but resolute, "I'm a soldier, not a thug. I've served this country for years. I'm just trying to get home to my family." Karen scoffed, her face twisting into a sneer. "Served? Please, you people always play the victim card. I bet you've never even seen combat." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of shock and unease. Marcus's hands clenched into fists, not out of anger but to steady the tremor of hurt. He'd seen combat, too much of it. He'd carried wounded comrades through gunfire, watched friends fall, and buried memories he'd never share. And now, here in his own country, the tension thickened, the air electric with anticipation. Travelers slowed, forming a loose circle around the scene. Karen's voice grew shriller, her accusations wilder. "You don't belong here, acting like you're better than us. I'm sick of people like you getting a free pass." Each word was a dagger, cutting not just Marcus but the very idea of justice. Then, a new voice broke through a gravelly, weathered tone from the edge of the crowd. "Enough!" An older man stepped forward, his gray hair thinning, his frame stooped but commanding. He wore a faded veteran's cap, its insignia worn but proud. His name was Harold, a Vietnam vet who'd been watching silently from a nearby bench, his eyes locked on Karen, unyielding. "You're talking to a soldier, lady. Show some respect." Karen faltered, her bravado cracking. "2M just saying what everyone's thinking," she stammered. But the crowd's mood shifted. Whispers turned to murmurs of agreement with Harold. A young woman in a hijab nodded quietly. A businessman set down his briefcase, his face grim. Marcus, caught off guard by the stranger's defense, felt a flicker of warmth amid the storm. Harold stepped closer, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I fought in a war where men like him weren't even allowed to serve alongside me. Black soldiers faced hell here and abroad, and still they fought. This man's uniform means more than your words ever will. The crowd fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Karen's face flushed, but she doubled down, her voice now a desperate screech. "You're all brainwashed. He's no hero," she cried. But her words sounded hollow, drowned by the crowd's growing disapproval. Marcus, still standing tall, met her gaze. He could have unleashed his own anger, recounted the missions, the blood, the nights he thought he'd never see home. But instead, he chose a different weapon. Truth. "Ma'am," he said, his voice clear, cutting through the noise. "I don't need your approval to know who I am. I fought for this country, for people like you, even when they didn't want me to. I've carried brothers who didn't make it back. And I'll keep serving, because it's not about you, it's about something bigger." He paused, his eyes softening. "I hope one day you see that." The terminal fell silent. Even the intercom seemed to hush. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came. The crowd stood frozen, some with tears in their eyes, others nodding in quiet awe. Harold placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, a silent salute. The young ticket agent, her own eyes misty, handed Marcus his boarding pass with a trembling smile. Karen, deflated, grabbed her purse and stormed off, her heels clicking against the tile. The crowd parted, some shaking their heads, others clapping softly for Marcus. He nodded, not in triumph but in gratitude, and made his way to the gate. Harold walked beside him, unprompted, sharing a quiet story of his own service. "You did good, son," he said. "You did good." As Marcus boarded his flight, he glanced back at the terminal, where travelers were already dispersing, some whispering about what they'd witnessed. He felt the weight of the moment, not just the pain of Karen's words, but the unexpected ally in Harold, the silent support of strangers. It wasn't a victory, not fully, but it was a reminder. Even in division, there were those who'd stand with him. The plane's engines roared, carrying Marcus toward home, toward his wife, his daughter, and a life he'd fought for. He didn't know if Karen would ever change, but he knew he'd keep fighting, not with fists but with the quiet strength of his truth. And maybe, just maybe, someone in that crowd would carry his words forward, a ripple of hope in a fractured world. What do you think? Can one person's truth overcome a community's prejudice? Or is the fight for justice always an uphill battle?